When it looked like the Chicago sky is turning heads, we're having another Barbie night when Caitlin's coming.
You won't believe what just happened in Chicago. The Sky just pulled the most desperate, embarrassing move in WNBA history, and it's about to blow up in their faces in the most spectacular way possible. They scheduled another Barbie night, perfectly timed for when Caitlin Clark rolls into town, and Angel Reese is about to learn the hardest lesson of her career. This is the kind of story that makes you wonder if some teams are addicted to humiliation, because what Chicago just did is so tone-deaf, so painfully obvious, that even their own fans are calling them out. And trust me, by the time this game is over on July 27th, the Sky might need therapy more than they need a win. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. Is Chicago's strategy here smart business? Or is it the most desperate cash grab we've ever seen in women's basketball? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because what I'm about to break down for you will make your jaw hit the floor. The Chicago Sky just announced they're doing it again. They're literally repeating the exact same mistake that got them absolutely demolished last year. Except this time, the consequences are going to be so much worse. Here's what went down. Chicago just announced their Barbie night for July 27th. Cute, right? Pink jerseys, themed entertainment, the whole 9 yards. But here's the kicker that'll make your blood boil. Guess who just happens to be visiting Chicago that exact same night? That's right, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Now, some people might call this a coincidence, but if you believe that, I've got some oceanfront property in Kansas to sell you. This is Chicago trying to use Clark's name to fill seats while simultaneously trying to create some kind of intimidation factor for
Remember last year they gave her a Barbie night, the Indiana Fever came to town and put the beats of a lifetime on them, bruh. Well, hopefully that can happen again, but as of right now, we just don't know. But I do want to let you guys know that news did break yesterday about this Barbie night that is scheduled to take place on July the 27th. In Chicago, Illinois, and we all know what that day is. That is the day the
Angel Reese. It's pathetic, it's transparent, and it's about to backfire in the most beautiful way possible. You want to know how I know this is going to be a disaster? Because they literally did this exact same thing last year. Same setup, same promotional night, same opponent. And what happened? The Indiana Fever walked into Chicago and absolutely obliterated the Sky on their own home court. While Chicago was throwing a party for Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark stole the show, dominated the game, and sent the home crowd home in silence. You'd think after getting embarrassed like that, the Sky would learn their lesson, right? Wrong. Chicago seems to be addicted to embarrassment in front of their own fans. Last year, they got the beats of a lifetime from Indiana, and instead of taking notes, they're doubling down on the same failed strategy. I don't know if lightning will strike twice, but based on what we've seen from these two teams, the Fever are about to roll into Chicago on July 27th and make the Sky wish they'd scheduled their Barbie night for
pointing this out that this is another consecutive year that the Chicago Sky is taking advantage of the Caitlin Clark effect and having this Barbie day. Now, last year they did a thing. They gave out t-shirts and stuff for Angel, and I don't know why they decided to do it this day, guys, but it just is what it is, man. A lot of Indiana Fever fans.
Any other date. The reaction from fans has been absolutely brutal, and honestly, it's kind of beautiful to watch. Indiana Fever supporters are roasting Chicago all over social media, and they're not holding back. One fan perfectly summed it up when they said Angel is using Caitlin Clark for literally everything. And you know what? They're absolutely right. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if more Fever fans show up to the game than Sky supporters. Chicago is basically hosting a Caitlin Clark fan event disguised as an Angel Reese celebration, and the timing couldn't be more ridiculous. But wait, it gets worse. Clark is dealing with a groin injury right now, which means there's a real possibility she might not even play. So Chicago is building their entire promotional strategy around a player who might not even step foot on the court. But here's the thing that really shows you how desperate they are. They're using Clark's name anyway. Whether she plays or not, they're leveraging the anticipation, the buzz, the ticket sales that come with her name. Fans are already calling them out for the second consecutive year of trying to exploit the Caitlin Clark effect for their own benefit. From a business perspective, this is just pathetic. Chicago can't generate interest in their own team without relying on their opponent's biggest star. They're basically admitting that Angel Reese and their roster aren't compelling enough to draw fans on their own merit. And this is happening at the worst possible time. The WNBA is in the middle of serious CBA negotiations with players fighting for better pay and working conditions, and Chicago is out here focused on promotional gimmicks instead of actually improving their team. Pat McAfee dropped some serious truth bombs about the league's financial situation recently. The WNBA is losing $40 million annually on $200 million in revenue, and they can't find an extra $30,000 per player to give them six-figure salaries. McAfee was trying to get Commissioner Kathy Engelbert on his show during All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, but surprise, surprise, she was too busy to face the hard questions. You know, McAfee would have grilled her about the financial mess, the referee problems, the salary disparities. I mean, Clark is making $70,000 while a single game's worth of concessions costs about the same amount. It's insane. The problem with Chicago's approach goes way deeper than just one promotional night. Teams should be using Clark's popularity to elevate the entire league, but instead they're manufacturing controversy and creating artificial rivalries. Chicago and Angel Reese look desperate and insecure, relying on promotional gimmicks instead of letting their basketball do the talking. They're creating bulletin board material for their opponents, and that's never a good sign. When you resort to psychological games, it usually means you don't think you can compete on the court. Here's what Chicago doesn't understand about Caitlin Clark. Intimidation tactics don't work on her. This is a player who performed under the most intense pressure in college basketball, in hostile environments all across the country, delivering clutch performances when the lights were brightest. You think a themed promotional night is going to rattle someone who's been through that? If anything, these antics are going to provide extra motivation for Clark. She tends to perform her best when all eyes are on her, and Chicago might be creating the perfect storm for Clark to absolutely dominate. The Indiana Fever have already beaten Chicago multiple times this season without any extra Barbie Night motivation. Now the Sky are basically handing them extra incentive to come in and spoil their party again. It makes no strategic sense whatsoever. Chicago is advertising themselves as supporting characters in Caitlin Clark's story instead of building their own identity and promoting their players on merit. They're defining themselves in relation to their opponents rather than standing on their own accomplishments. The fact that Chicago feels the need to add extra bells and whistles just to generate interest in their home games is telling. They're basically admitting that their regular product isn't compelling enough to fill seats. That's not the kind of admission you want to make as a professional sports franchise, especially when you're trying to build a sustainable fan base. This whole situation is setting up for what I'm calling an instant regret scenario. The hype and pressure they're creating is just setting themselves up for an even bigger failure than last year. The previous disaster didn't have this much promotion and anticipation around it, but now they've got media attention, social media buzz, and elevated expectations. If this backfires, and let's be honest, it probably will, the story is going to be even bigger and more humiliating than before. All this extra pressure is being placed squarely on Angel Reese's shoulders for her special night. If she has a poor performance or gets outplayed by Clark, it's going to reflect so much worse because of all the buildup. Chicago is creating artificial drama that has the potential for a spectacular backfire. And Reese is going to be the one who suffers for it. The narrative trap Chicago has created is perfect. They've set it up so that anything less than a decisive victory is going to look like a failure. Social media reaction is already largely negative, with fans calling out their desperate attention-seeking behavior. People remember what happened last year, and they're not impressed by the repeat performance. Even the supportive comments reveal underlying problems. Fans are suggesting they need to sign additional players, which shows they don't have confidence in the current roster. What Chicago doesn't understand is how real rivalries are built in sports. The best rivalries come from mutual respect between evenly matched competitors who bring out the best in each other. When there's clear superiority on one side, promotional gimmicks just create mockery, not rivalry. Look at Lakers Celtics in the NBA or Yankees Red Sox in baseball. Those rivalries were built on rich histories, passionate fan bases, and competitive battles, not themed promotional nights. Caitlin Clark has already established herself as one of the premier players in the WNBA in just her second season. She's broken attendance records, television viewership records, and consistently performs at an elite level against the best competition in the world. Angel Reese is undeniably talented, but she hasn't reached that same level of impact and recognition. Chicago's promotional strategy just reinforces the perception that Clark is the main attraction while their supporting cast, which is the opposite of what they should be trying to build. The timing of this promotion creates a no-win scenario for Chicago. If Clark doesn't play due to injury, they look foolish for building an entire event around her. If Clark does play and dominates, they look foolish for providing extra motivation and a bigger stage for her success. There's literally no scenario where this strategy reflects well on Chicago or Angel Reese. They're guaranteed to look worse regardless of what happens on the court. This is happening at a time when the WNBA is finally receiving mainstream attention and recognition that the league has desperately needed for years. Clark is bringing new fans and media coverage to women's basketball, and teams should be capitalizing on this momentum by improving their play and competition level. Instead, Chicago is getting distracted by sideshow antics. Pat McAfee's comments about the league's finances highlight exactly why teams need to focus on building sustainable, competitive franchises. Better player pay is dependent on continued fan base growth and revenue increases, which comes from putting a quality product on the court, not promotional gimmicks that generate short-term attention but fail to build lasting fan engagement. Chicago's approach is doing a disservice to their own players, including Angel Reese. They're positioning her as a supporting character instead of highlighting her legitimate accomplishments and letting her talent speak for itself. Reese has been successful at every level of basketball she's played, and she doesn't need gimmicky promotional nights to validate her abilities. The fact that Chicago keeps going back to this strategy suggests they don't have confidence in Reese's ability to generate interest independently, and that's not fair to her or her development as a player and brand. The instant regret is already manifesting in the negative fan and media reaction they're getting. Instead of looking clever, they're reminding everyone of their previous failure and setting themselves up for another potential embarrassment. A smart organization would have learned from their mistake and taken a different approach. They could have promoted team improvement, highlighted new additions to the roster, or simply let Angel Reese's individual accomplishments speak for themselves. Instead, they chose to repeat a failed strategy and hope for different results, which is pretty much the definition of insanity. The damage is already being done, and the game is still over a week away. They're being positioned as desperate attention seekers rather than serious competitors, which affects their ability to build sustainable fan support and attract quality players and coaches in the future. Angel Reese deserves better than being used as a promotional prop. Caitlin Clark deserves better than having her achievements turned into controversy fodder. And WNBA fans deserve better than gimmicks taking precedence over actual basketball improvement. Chicago is creating a circus atmosphere that overshadows the sport itself, and it's going to lead to instant regret when reality doesn't match the hype they've created. The Sky are setting themselves up for another embarrassing failure by repeating the exact same mistake that got them humiliated before. When will teams learn that promotional gimmicks can't replace talent, strategy, and execution on the basketball court? Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen during this Barbie Night disaster, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more WNBA reality checks.